we do a sound check. Go ahead and tell us quickly and easily that you can see the sound and you can see the screen. Yep, yep, yes, can hear you, can hear you. And yes, yes, can hear sounds, perfect. All right, guys, welcome to tonight's call. This is interview number 3, Seller Finance Consultants, talking with Brian Gibbons from reiskills.com. And this is interview 3 in our interviews with seller finance experts. We'll be talking about why real estate investors and agents suck and how you cannot as well suck yourself. Welcome, Brian. Great to have you with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. And guys, can you hear Brian? Give me a quick yes. Good to go. Yes. Yes. Can hear sound. All right. Fantastic. Well, Brian is a 30-year veteran, a 30-year veteran in the industry with respect to coaching up, as we like to call it, agents and investors who are looking for a safer, smarter, better way, looking for a way to really engage their profits and increase their profits and decrease their risk. And realistically doing this without all the heavy lifting and doing this in a lot more safer, saner way. Brian is from his own website of reiskills.com, and he really focuses in on how to make money quickly, how to get a quick start in real estate, how to not be a one-trick pony and be the real estate agent that's trying to cram a listing agreement down a seller's throat, or be an investor who's trying to cram a wholesale deal that's just not going to work at a highly discounted amount that a seller's not going to offer. And the last thing that Brian obviously talks about, and he's going to talk about, is on using a coach. So as you guys know, these are no fluff, no marketing content calls, and we really are designed to in 50 minutes or less give you the nuts and bolts of what you can do to go out and make money here and now, and give you this really relevant information. So with that being said, Brian, let's talk about some of the, your background's extremely interesting, from NLP to, again, helping investors and real estate agents get out of the trap of being a one-trick pony. So let's start off by talking about how, briefly, how did you find yourself here? What got you into this place?
Well, my background, I started in real estate back in 1984. I did my first rehab, hard money, rent-to-own deal with a coach. I had a mentor. He was about 60 years old. I was 24 years old, right out of the Marine Corps. And he just took me by the hand and showed me how to do a deal. And I was like, in about 4 months, I made $16,000. Back then, that was a lot of money. I mean, it was a good amount of money, and I didn't know anything. So that's how I got baptized in it. And then I liked him so much. He gave me a job in his real estate investing company, and I was an acquisition manager. And he had a big his name was Glenn. And Glenn had this really. He was spending about $1,000 a week in marketing. And my job was to go out and talk to sellers. And I was scared out of my mind. You wouldn't believe it, Mark. Scared out of my mind talking to sellers of this young kid. But he gave me a framework, like a negotiation framework to talk to the sellers about and ask like a list of questions. And our job was to give them a low cash offer and a terms offer. And, back then the terms was, if you folks don't know what terms are, it means that you're buying on terms. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about tools, and this is what the toolbox that I help every single real estate investor and every single real estate agent use. One tool is an installment sale agreement for deed tool. Now, you can either give somebody some payments and then get the deed down the road. And every state has different rules with the agreement for deed kind of tool. Another tool is a lease purchase or a lease with option tool, where we would do some kind of a sandwich or a lease option assignment, where we would take control of the property with a lease. And
Brian, just so we don't lose anyone, can you explain the terminology you just used? Sandwich.
Oh, sure. Let me just give you a quick example. Examples are the easiest ways to really have clarity. I mean, if you had a property that was $100,000 and you wanted to buy it on a sandwich, well, I would lease with an option and have an option to buy at 90, and then I would sublease and sub-option for 110, and I would make the difference between the 110 and the 90, and I'd make $20,000 when my sublease buyer bought it. Okay, and that's
let me just stop you right there, because I think this is a massive spotlight, and I really want your ears to open up, guys. And this is something Terry and I talk about. Terry's actually at the Paper Source event, which is the second largest event in our industry in Las Vegas right now. I don't know if he's going to be joining us or not, but this is something that both of us talk about massively, is creating your own spread and doing this without very highly risky, highly expensive, either getting hard money or using your own money or obviously another investor's money, and realistically just creating that arbitrage and creating that spread without the massive amount of risk, and also doing it with less friction from the seller. So focus on this as Brian talks tonight, and as you hear the strategies that he talks about, this is really the point is with a lease option, you can flip a property just like you can, in this, the industry jargon is a sandwich. It's just important to focus on this idea, and as we move into this new shift, into this new market, that's what we're preparing for. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, thank you. And this works well with expensive homes too, by the way. I mean, right now, let's say that we run into a motivated seller that has very little equity, and he can't sell with an agent. Why can't he sell with an agent? Because it would cost him a lot of money out of his pocket to sell. Let's use an example. Let's say that you're in an expensive market. I live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, a modest little 3 or 4 bedroom house out here is very expensive. It's about $900,000. That's insane if you live in Ohio. The same house is $150,000 in Ohio, right?
Right. I'll take 6.
So let's say we had a $900,000 house and they bought it in 2007, and they have very little equity because, they're not upside down, but they might only have 5 or 10% equity. Well, you could find out what market rent is for that property. It's probably around $3,000, and offer them on between that. Maybe you could offer them $2,500 for 3 years on a sandwich, and then have an exercise price at about 10% below or 5% below market value. And then you could sublease and sub-option for maybe $3,200 with a spread of about $700 a month. And that would really be fun. I don't want to focus strictly on sandwiches, but sandwiches are a very strong tool in this non-selling market right now. Very strong tool. The millennials right now, they don't want to buy. They want to be able to rent for a while. So why don't you help them get the mortgage, especially if they have some student loan debt or something like that. You could give them a long-term lease with an option to be able to give them time to pay down some debt. And you could also help that seller that has very little equity perhaps pay down some of their principal so that they will have a little bit more equity by the time they exercise their option. So that's a win-win between the seller and the buyer. I want to touch on a couple of other tools on acquisition. One is going to be a wraparound mortgage on a purchase. That See, a lot of people don't want to rent out their house as a seller. They go, I don't want to rent out this house. I want to sell it. I said, okay. Well, let's compare it with selling it for cash and selling it on a wraparound mortgage. So I draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper, and I show them the cost to sell traditionally with an agent. Now, you agents out there, you have to really get creative when you have a listing presentation, because it's all about what the seller will net. And if we can increase the seller's net, then we'll get more listings, won't we?
Yeah.
So,
and guys, Brian's got a really phenomenal 6-minute video. Is that one on your website, Brian? You sent it to me a couple weeks ago when we were talking.
Yeah, what we're going to do, if everybody just hangs in here on this call, we're going to give them an incredible number of free assets. And they're going to be free videos and free forms where you're going to have a very clear understanding of how this works, where you can help the seller sell on terms and then either lease the property out or actually sell it on terms and make a good amount of money. So just hang in there. Let's just get our vocabulary.
I was just saying, don't worry about writing all this down. There's a killer video. Just pay attention by audio, and you can go and watch the video on his site at a later, after the call. Anyway,
right. Just the big problem right now is sellers don't want to sell, and they don't want to list with agents because they just feel like it's not a good time. And if you can show them that they can make 100 cents on the dollar for their house and have the buyer pay your fee, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be absolutely? It could be a game changer for you if you're an agent. If you are an investor, you could give a low wholesale offer and a terms offer and have them have choices. That's the key to being a good real estate investor, is to be able to give a low cash offer and 1 or 2 terms offers. That is the key. So we want to talk about one other acquisition strategy, and that is subject to. Now, everybody out there has probably heard a little bit about subject to, but they don't understand the mechanics of it. Let's just keep it simple. $100,000 house, $98,000 you owe against the house. So there's only $2,000 in equity. And if the seller sold with an agent, they would probably have to pay money to get rid of the house. Well, what I generally tell people is if you listed it with me, if I'm a licensed agent, you'd have to pay money to get rid of the house. There's one way that we can buy the house from you, and this is what would happen. It would take us 7 days to buy it from you, and we would pay principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that PITI payment to you, for approximately 3 to 5 years. And we would take care of maintenance. But you would have to ask yourself, can I keep the loan in my name for that period of time? Because if you can't, this is not going to work. And that's what subject to existing financing is all about. Now, there is a due on sale clause, and that means that the bank could call the loan due, but if that payment is made on time, chances are very, very low that the bank is going to call the loan due. I cannot promise you the bank will not call a loan due on subject to. No one can. If they say they can, they're not telling you the truth. But in all my subject to deals, I've never had the loan called, because then I attributed that to a perfect payment history on my part. So those are the tools that we use. Let's review them. We do a lease option, whether it's a sandwich or an assignment. We do a wraparound mortgage on an acquisition, where we buy it on a wrap. and then the last one is a subject to. And there's one last one, and then we'll open the door up for some questions. There's something called an installment sale when you buy a free and clear house. Now, there's no due on sale clause on a free and clear house. Now, I have a background in financial planning. Does anybody out there know what the term annuity means? An annuity is a cash flow stream for a period of time. So, if we had a $100,000 house and market rent was $1,000, what I try to do is get $300 a month positive cash flow in a situation for me. If I can't get $300 a month, I don't do it. So if it's a $100,000 house, free and clear, market rent's $1,000, I will offer the seller, I might offer the seller more money than the $100,000. I might offer them $102,000 with a payment of $700 a month for a period of time. How long? Take the $700, divide it into the $102,000, you'll get the number of months. Now, guess what? There's no interest on this deal. How would you like to go buy a house that you have $300 a month with no interest? Is that good for the seller? Yep. Well, they're making $102,000 for the house. They're getting a cash flow stream. If they die, the cash flow stream can revert to the children, or to a charity, or to some other good cause.
Let's add something to this because it needs to be added. Recent report, I think in the Wall Street Journal, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I think that's what it was. It reported that of retirees, we're talking about a demographic of, what, 73 million, something like that, people, 90%, I'm going to repeat that number, 90% of their net worth is in home equity.
Mm-hmm.
So we know you can't take the shingles off your roof and cook them up for dinner. Mm-hmm. And we know that death is not a retirement plan. Mm-hmm. So is this a massive, we talk about new waves that we're currently undergoing and experiencing moving forward. Is this something to focus on? Is this an opportunity or what?
Well, there's a lot of people that are retirees too. They don't want to leave the kids the house. They want to leave the kids money.
Yeah, estate planning.
And the other thing is they don't want to leave the kids a rental property that has headaches, tenants and toilets, and they don't want to have even lawsuits, right? You can't get sued on a note. You can get sued being a landlord, though.
Yeah.
And you guys are experts in notes. I just want to tell everybody on this call, with Dodd-Frank and with the S.A.F.E Act and with TILA and with RESP, with all these changes in the federal laws, if you are not, when you acquire a property, you don't have to worry about Dodd-Frank. But when you sell on terms, whether it's even a lease with an option, I want you all to go through the best RMLO you can find and make sure that they look at the deal. Now, if you have the ability to repay rule looked at with every single seller finance buyer, you can sleep at night knowing that that person has been, the ability to repay has been looked at. And you have actually a fiduciary duty if you're going to do a lease option assignment where you lease with an option for the seller and then assign that deal to a tenant buyer. Make sure that tenant buyer goes through an RMLO. At least the 1003 mortgage app has been looked at. That will help you and the seller sleep at night knowing that you've done some kind of due diligence underwriting the tenant buyer. Let's say they had debt to earnings at 44% or 45%. The RMLO can help you tell, just basically have a letter and say, look, the only thing that's going to stop this mortgage is the debt to earnings ratio. So let's work on that. That's our recommendation. And you have that in the file. And if something happens in 2 years from now, the tenant buyer gets a lawyer and says, we're going to take you to court. says, well, that's going to be a little bit of an insurance policy for you that you've properly underwritten the tenant buyer in this Dodd-Frank environment. All right, that's. I just wanted to touch base on that. Those are the tools in our toolbox a lot of the time. Now there are some combinations and some exotic solutions. You know, like, I mean, I've had deals where I've given a life estate to somebody in the house, and then the title is reverted to me. But we won't go into some of the esoteric things. Those are the basic tools that you have. And folks out there that's listening to this, if you keep it simple and be a problem solver in your real estate practice and just go after houses that are for sale but there's a problem. Like, for instance, expired listings are my favorite. I want to go see an expired listing and give them a lease to own special report, which you will be getting at the end of this recording. And this special report just basically says, hey, look, there's a way to solve your problem, and here's a special report that can help you. And I just knock on their door if it's an expired listing, especially if I can get a list of expired listings that just expired. I mean this week. And I knock on their door, and I say, look, I know your house has been for sale. Here's a free report on something that I can do to fix your situation generally within 2 weeks. Just take a look at it and then give me a call. It really is.
That's great. And, you know, you really wonder if more real estate agents and investors did just that, how big of a difference it would absolutely transform their business. You know, what you're talking about, you could probably do in your own neighborhood. Could you not?
Yeah, let's talk about what's a great neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
I really think that there's people out there on the tenant buyer side of this business. They want a safe neighborhood, good schools, right? They want a street that's safe. So let's say you take all the expired listings and you find the safest streets and the best schools and focus on those, and then start with those. If you want to find a house that has a good floor plan and it's off the main drag and it's in a good school district, if you can do just that, you'll be in very, very good shape. So that's how I kind of farm the right areas and stay on. If you're trying to sell, you know, fix a problem. You got to be a problem solver. Don't be, you know, like everybody else. If you don't have a problem, I can't talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So can we talk about, I want to talk to you about two other things, and I guess I'll just ask the question one at a time.
Sure. Go ahead.
Let's talk about negotiation skills and NLP.
Okay. Well, you know, negotiation, a lot of people think negotiation is a little bit like sales. You know, I can show you the benefits of why you should do this today, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a mistake. Because in my opinion, negotiating isn't selling. And I have a saying about when I'm interviewing the seller: be the doctor with the seller. Now, when you walk into a doctor's office, the doctor's going to do, the first thing he's going to require is that you fill out a form, and the girl's going to give you a clipboard, and you're going to sit down and fill out the form. And on the form are basically some questions, right? And you answer those questions. Well, that's what I do. I have an intake form on the phone, and I get a handle on, you know, where the property is, whether or not it was listed or not before, and what the existing financing is. Because what the existing financing is the key information on what we can offer them. What the balance is, if it's an ARM or a fixed rate, and all the rest of that other stuff, and what's their motivation to sell. and getting some of that information over the phone, and then a little bit more of that information in the initial interview in the living room is the most important thing. So being the doctor. And then you've got to ask the right questions. And I train you in how to do that interview. In that interview, if you're an agent and there's very little equity in the house, you have to do that interview right in order to be able to get the seller to say, yep, you're my guy, you go get a terms offer and a cash offer, and we'll pick the best one. That's the result that you want. You want the seller to say, you're my guy, go get a cash offer and a terms offer, and we'll get the best one. That's the end result.
Another thing you talk about is soft skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, soft skills are the skills that are necessary to be able to be a good negotiator.
Okay.
I call it.
Can we go deeper into that?
Sure, let's go into that. Let's say the push-pull of the rope. And let's say that in any negotiation, a visual is like a tug-of-war with a middle line in the sand, and you got to pull somebody over the other line and beat them into submission, right? Where they just get exasperated. And they say, okay, you win, right? That's not what this is. What I want them to do is I want them to pull me over their side so that they feel like they've won. But I still get the agreement. Does that make sense on a visual?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, what we're talking about, Robert Cialdini in his book, Influence, you know, in the 6 Principles of Influence, one of the key things, I think it's number 3, is scarcity. And, you know, you go to the movie theater and for, I don't know why, but you order the small popcorn and it always seems to taste better than the large box. I don't know. But yeah, scarcity matters. And so let's be honest, real estate is scarcity. I mean, that's one of the main principles of scarcity.
Mm. Well, one of the things I like to do with the seller is I've got like 5 steps. One is building rapport, and if you don't know how to build rapport, it's a good in-home presentation salesperson knows how to build rapport. They ask questions about their family and their occupation and their what they like to do for vacations and things of that nature. And then I use this special upfront agreement, which basically avoids let me think it over. We actually get an upfront agreement to come to a yes or a no at the end of the conversation. So no more, let me think it over, or I'll get it back to you, or I'll talk it over with my attorney or my dog or my CPA. Right. They will sign some kind of agreement before you leave. And you will be a lot more effective with your time if you use a really good upfront agreement. Discovering their real motivation for selling sometimes takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth the energy with the seller. And then,
well, that's key. You don't never want to be in a chase mode, and once you're chasing, now you're at a lower position of value.
Right.
And you see this, you know, you see this pretty much everywhere. Relationships, you know, your position at your job or work or whatever, and yeah, it's powerful stuff. You can set up the initial frame of a yes or no. And so, how do you do that, Brian? Because I'm sure, without even looking at the question box, I'm sure someone's thinking to ask that question. What's your process for engaging the initial interview for a yes or no? Do you tell them at the beginning that, you know, after our presentation I'm going to ask you yes or no? Do you set the frame there and pre-frame it? How do you go about that?
Well, we do tend to do a very gentle pre-frame after we do a walkthrough on the house. And it does take...
So you'll walk through?
We'll do the steps are we'll knock on the door for our appointment. We'll be on time. We'll do a walkthrough on the outside during daylight hours, and we'll do a walkthrough on the inside, and then we'll end up at the kitchen table. Or I like the kitchen table, and where they sit is important. You want them directly across the table from you so that you can look both of them in the eye without turning your head. You want to be able to look at mom and dad on either side, like straight across the table. You don't want them at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock at the table where you have to turn your head a lot of distance to look at each one. That's
right.
the first thing. So getting in the right position on the table is important. And secondly, when you're at the table, you do the upfront agreement. And it really is, you know, you want to let them know that you really care about their success with this meeting, but you also care about your success with this meeting. And I have a recording that's over 2.5 hours that the people at the end of this call will be able to get access to that for free. There's no fee for this. And I really believe that if you master that language on that recording, you will make more money by using that framework of talking to sellers than any other framework, especially if there's very little equity in the house.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. You know, I don't want to teach NLP in 5 minutes. It doesn't do justice of it.
No, I just wanted to introduce it in the conversation. You know, what's his name? And Joe Stumps talks about it. You know, it's nice. It's been around, and I just wanted to see how it's used respectfully. You know, in your practice and with your students.
Well, I'll get you access, and I'd love to have because you're a student of NLP and you understand that.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I really love about this 5-step process is the last step, which is called the what if step. And the what if step basically avoids any rejection of any offer. And I'll kind of give you an example. There's a few things in this what if step. One is appeal to a higher authority, which if you've taken any negotiation, you've heard that. And that's where you're including another party that needs to approve the deal, like your business partner. And another one is negative phrasing, where you're not overly eager as far as getting the deal done. And the what if step for a lease to own deal might sound like, well, Bob and Susan, we really spent a lot of time here going over every possible solution. And I would like to put one idea on the table right now. It's just an idea, and if you absolutely hate it, just let me know. That's fine. But, what if we could get you a payment for a period of time? And I don't even know if my business partner will approve this, but we'll give it a try because he handles all the numbers. But what if we could get you a payment that would cover your PITI for about 2 to 5 years? And then whatever your existing balance is, whatever the payoff is on your mortgage, that would be paid off completely. And all closing costs would be paid by somebody else, not you. But you would be done with this. Would that be a possible solution to look at, or maybe not? Now, that just opens the door.
Yeah.
That just opens the door. And if you're a motivated seller, chances are you'd be open to that. But that,
and that brings up a great distinction. One of on the staying on the track of NLP and opening people's minds. That one of my mentors and teachers always talked about the use of words of possibility. So you can use the word. A lot of people say you should, and you should do this, you should do that. And what he talks about and what he always gets the point across is using the word can. We can, or you can do this. And the whole idea is here, it's the same thing. It's you might. We might be able to do this. Mm-hmm. And now you've opened up the door of possibility. And once you open up the door of possibility to someone's mind, the door is open. It's a question of whether ultimately you'll walk through.
I totally agree. But what you don't want to make it look like it's easy either, right?
No.
You're just opening up the door and kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and ask them to poke their head around it. And you're the big implementer. You're the ones that can get this thing done.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And you can't diminish your value in getting this thing done.
Yeah.
So that's, I always start off, Mark, new students, even senior agents and senior real estate investors, because they all have ingrained habits, the senior people, and they need to have new skills. And this, generally, this negotiation training is a new skill. We're at... go ahead.
I really like the fact that you talk about, you know, you really focus on this idea of a quick start in real estate and, you know, this idea of getting paid, you know, getting paid in 30 days. Because the trap I see, and I've always seen, you know, you can see the people that don't make it. Whether we're talking about real estate investors or agents, the problem is the same always. It's that know-it-all thing. And, you know, there's, you see it all around. And where people want to just know everything. And they have to know it all. So they, you know, they're reading this training program and then this training program, and then they're jumping carts all around. And they never really get into the possibility of making money because they need to know everything. And, of course, we know the reality of that this is a moving target and everything changes a month from now and will continue to change. And you don't know everything, I don't know everything, and we don't even know of anyone that knows everything. And that's the brutal reality of the business. And if you don't focus on getting paid quick, you've really missed the point.
Well, one of the problems with agents is, first of all, they don't get paid fast.
Right.
If they're a listing agent, you know, they get a listing, they might not get paid for 4 to 6 months from now.
Yep.
And if they're in snow country, they only have a selling season of 6 months because nobody's going to sell their house with a lot of snow, right?
Right, right.
Okay. But there are sellers out there in snow country that still need to sell. So if you can differentiate yourself and say, look, if you really need to sell within 30 to 60 days, I can help you, but you need to be creative. You need to have a creative head on your shoulders. If you have a creative head on your shoulders, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to show you how to fix your house problem quickly.
Yep.
Because every house sale is a house problem. And you have the solution. You have 2 or 3 solutions. Now, I want to touch just a little bit in this video, talks about this as far as the marketing, the old way and a better way. Now, this is more toward the investors on this call. But the old way basically says something like, I will buy your house any condition fast in 24 hours. That's a wholesale.
Or cash for homes. Cash for homes, stuff like that. Sell fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my way is more toward, you know, more creativity than that, because that's price driven.
Right.
You know, and you need the 65% of ARV less cost on the We Buy Houses model for that thing to work, and that's a needle in a haystack. And I'm on Bigger Pockets quite a bit, and I love Bigger Pockets because everybody has wonderful opinions and so forth. There's great articles on there why wholesaling sucks. It's a terrible model, especially in the beginning, because it's a needle in a haystack. You know, you might have to send out 300 shitty offers, 300, to get one.
Yeah.
So here's a better message. I'll buy your house fast. Here's your quick and easy solution. Fast closing, instant debt relief, freedom from maintenance houses, guaranteed written offer within 48 hours. Hard to sell home? No problem. No equity? No problem. No commissions. Call this phone number, 24-hour recorded message.
Solid gold.
That is a little bit more to be able to give them terms offers and cash offers at the same time. But it doesn't focus on I'll buy your house fast any condition. So in my opinion,
you could even, and Brian, you were talking about delivering a report to someone. I mean, you could hand deliver this in a, something somewhat presentable. I don't know, roll it up into a scroll or something like that, and tie a ribbon on it, and I think it would be received in the same light, would it not? Because you're providing a solution.
Well, I just think that if you just put the report in the door, that's not going to be good enough, especially on an expired. An expired, you need about 5 touches to get that expired, to win that expired over. It's so important to understand something. When something goes expired, many agents go after expireds, don't they? In marketing?
Sure.
And that seller gets beaten up, right?
Oh, yeah.
That seller gets maybe 5, 7 calls, maybe 10 letters from competing agents because it's public knowledge that it's expired. How can you differentiate yourself?
More than that.
Yeah, from all that noise, how can you differentiate yourself from that, all that noise? Well,
100%.
A knock on the door will differentiate yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You could knock on the door with your flyer, and
it's actually a 3-page report coupled with some news articles from Wall Street Journal and MSN Money and also from NOLO.com, which is written by lawyers about seller financing in general, because you don't want to be painting a picture that you're giving legal advice.
Sure.
But you've got to give them some credible, authoritative pieces that can back up what you're saying. And then the 3-page report. So it's basically, there's an educational component to teaching sellers that they have other options besides listing it with an agent for cash and renting it out.
Right.
So can I just touch on my coaching and how it works? Can I do that?
You read my mind. That was my next question.
Well, everybody's going to receive the curriculum on this call. The curriculum basically goes through everything you need to know in real estate investing. One of the things that gurus do is they give it piecemeal. They'll teach you lease options in this course, and subject to in another course, and then private lending in another course, and then JV partnering with another course, all the rest of that other stuff. And that's how they keep selling you stuff. Well, I don't do that. What I do is I give you everything that you need, but I don't give it to you this month. You work with me for a year. It's a little bit like an apprentice program. And you pay a fee for 12 months, and it's 100 hours of my time. 100 hours. So that's 2 meetings with me for 60 minutes each meeting, twice a week, times 52 weeks or 50 weeks. We might not talk around Christmas because I got a life. And at the end of the day, my focus is getting you in front of sellers, going through a very sophisticated and well thought out presentation, and then giving them a solution through a letter of intent. And that letter of intent is going to spell out their solution. And then the attorney is going to draft a lease to own solution, a subject to solution, a wraparound mortgage solution, whatever they need, they're going to be okay. And I get you in front of sellers quickly. Now, you're not going to be great at it in the beginning. You will stumble, and you come back and talk to me and go, Brian, I really screwed up this step, or I forgot to do this, or whatever. And that's okay. You're in the field, and you're practicing. But you're actually doing things. You're not studying. So studying a little bit and doing, and studying a little bit and doing is the way I coach. And I think it gets the fastest results possible. But you have to be willing to stumble a little bit. And you have to be willing to make mistakes and learn from them. And I hope that, if you can face the fear and do it anyway, then you're the kind of student I want. If you've done something in your life that has been scary and you've done it and, face the fear and do it anyway, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about doing that. So that's my coaching. It's for a whole year. You learn everything, and you get 2 hours of my time. Now, if you need 3 or 4 hours in the first 4 weeks, if my schedule allows it, I will do that. But that's basically how my coaching works. And I've had some wonderful results from people that have never talked to a seller before in their whole life. And I've also helped a lot of people just make a little bit of a change in their listing presentation and double their production. So it really depends on what your goals are, how much money you want to make, and whether or not you want to wrap yourself around a proven system. That's all I wanted to say on my coaching.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, Brian, this was absolutely phenomenal. I certainly enjoyed it. I know everyone on the call did. And this, of course, will be on our YouTube channel in the next day or so under the Seller Finance Expert interview series. And Brian's website, as you can see, is right there. Go ahead and at a minimum begin with the video I was referencing. I think it's a 6-minute video. It's absolutely awesome. And it really breaks down in your mind how to wrap your mind around these principles and concepts with respect to differentiating yourself against the supposed competition and, as Brian calls it, the noise, and really to break through and get into the mind of a seller. And from there, go ahead and look at his other stuff. He said he's got the 2.5 hour. We get we get no financial compensation for endorsing Brian, other than just the knowledge that we're endorsing a really quality service that we know that people that use will definitely get the results from. And really, that's all that matters, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So, Brian, again, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And wrapping this up, we'll be with you guys next Wednesday with another really top-notch killer speaker who will be talking live from Mississippi. So I'm sure you guys know who that's going to be. And we'll definitely look. Actually, next week's Thanksgiving, so we'll be talking to him on Tuesday. The invitation will be going out for that. Have a great night, guys, and enjoy.
Well, thank you so much. I hope everybody had some fun with this.
We all did. Thanks, Brian.